James W. Jim Bilbro helped make it possible for the NASA team at the Marshall Space Flight Center to say, "We have the technology." At the time of his 2007 retirement, Jim was the center's Assistant Director for Technology and Chief Technologist, culminating a distinguished NASA career that began in 1968. There were many twists and turns, stark contrasts, and varied interests that shaped his professional life. And as you're about to see why, some have referred to him as Jim Bilbro, Renaissance Man. Jim was born the only child to Bill and Thelma Bilbro. Home was a cattle ranch near the tiny town of Kim, Colorado. While other kids were pretending to be a cowboy, Jim really was one. His birth preceded electricity in their home. The phone was a radio phone. The nearest neighbor was 5 miles away, and the nearest kid his own age was 10 miles away. Of the 5,000 acres from which to choose, a rattlesnake decided to join 2-year-old Jim in his outdoor playpen. Once Thelma saw the incursion, there was one less snake left on that ranch. The place was also teeming with Native American artifacts, and young Jim met many archaeologists, and for a while considered becoming one himself. But something else fascinated him: rockets and space exploration. He kept a scrapbook of newspaper clippings, but the open sky on that Colorado ranch seemed a world away from any opportunity to go to work for NASA. Jim graduated from Kim High School in 1964. There was a grand total of 6 in his graduating class. Beginning engineering studies at Colorado State University in Fort Collins, a chance meeting with Dr. Fritz Krauss from the Marshall Space Flight Center altered the course of Jim's life forever. It was also at Colorado State that he met Peggy Hale, originally from the cotton country near Lubbock, Texas. The two wed during their junior year at CSU and have been together ever since. In 1968, Jim began a co-op at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center, a dream come true. Graduating from Colorado State University in 1969 with a bachelor's of electrical engineering, Jim had no choice but to take a leave of absence for another federal job. Jim recalls getting a letter that opened, "Greetings from the President." It was his draft notice. He served 2 years with the 101st Airborne Division in Vietnam. In 1971, he returned to the Marshall Center. Soon, Jim was detailed to the Fluid Mechanics Research Office at Marshall to support studies by NASA and the Federal Aviation Administration of aircraft wake vortices disruptions in the wake of large airliners, which can reduce fuel efficiency and threaten other planes. He developed and tested a laser Doppler system for detecting wake vortices, and from 1974 to 75 conducted research into the phenomenon, which helped the FAA acquire its own system for tracking and eliminating aircraft vortices. As an optics research engineer at Marshall from 1975 to 1988, Jim became a leading expert in development of LiDAR remote sensing techniques, which use laser light to explore characteristics of a surface target. In 1981, he served as principal investigator for NASA's Severe Storm Test Flight, the first remote mapping of wind fields by an airborne LiDAR. From 1988 to 1990, he was senior engineer and technical expert for the optics branch of the Optics and Radio Frequency Systems Division. He led fabrication and testing of mirrors for the most powerful X-ray telescope ever made, the Chandra X-ray Observatory, launched in 1999.
Hi, Jim. I hope you remember me. I'm Eileen Collins. I was the commander of STS-93, which launched on July 23rd of 1999. And recently we had the 8th anniversary of the Chandra X-ray Observatory, which we deployed on July 23rd of that year. And If you remember, the flight was very, very successful, and the telescope is continuing to send back very successful scientific data. And I attribute that success, at least in part, to your dedicated work and leading on the testing and the fabrication of the Chandra mirrors. So today, I'd like, on behalf of the STS-93 crew, I'd like to thank you for all the work that you did and on this mission, and all of the wonderful, successful work that you've done for the space program throughout your career. And I'd like to wish you the best of luck in your retirement. Take care.
It's really remarkable. It was designed for 3-year operation with a goal of 5. We're in our 8th year and hoping to go for a long time. And Jim and the people that he worked with here at Marshall and everyone who worked on the observatory can be really proud of their accomplishments. Jim's group was involved in the development of the X-ray optics, and they're the heart of the observatory. And that telescope is one of the best X-ray telescopes, the best X-ray telescope ever built.
Jim's career was multifaceted, and to say that he wore many hats would be true on several levels. He served as Chief of the Optics Branch, Chief of the Optics and Radio Frequency Division, Assistant Director of the Astronautics Lab, and Special Assistant to the Center Director. He led the development of optics technology for the James Webb Space Telescope, which is slated for launch in 2011 and will capture infrared imagery of the universe. In 2002, Jim was promoted to the brand new position of the Center's Assistant Director for Technology and Chief Technologist. He basically wrote the book and discussed the importance of technology to the Center on the Focus on Marshall program.
Well, you know, NASA is really all about a cutting edge, and you can't do the kind of research, the kind of missions that NASA is proposing, particularly with respect to exploration, without having technology development. And so the ability to develop the technology, to get the technology focused to the needs for the mission are going to be one of the most challenging and important things that the agency can do.
Jim's awards during his NASA career were numerous, including 2 Exceptional Service Medals for his work in space optics. He also continued his education, earning a master's degree from the University of Alabama in Huntsville in 1977, and completed coursework and residency requirements for a doctorate in optical sciences from the University of Arizona, Tucson. Jim wrote or co-wrote more than 90 technical papers. And he's been very active in professional organizations, including the 2004 president of SPIE, the International Society for Optical Engineering.
So I think that he made his mark first in the optics world, and I think he is really recognized internationally in that regard. And so with that, put Marshall on the map with that. But he has also helped a lot in the last several years and where Marshall is going, what they're trying to do, and especially in the technology world. He's done a lot in that area.
The distinguished NASA career is only half of the Jim Bilbro equation.
Jim is a real Renaissance man. He really is.
He dabbles in 6 foreign languages, which comes in handy since he and Peggy are world travelers. He also has this little home renovation project. It started when they bought their home in 1971 and goes on still today. The house is twice the size it once was, and you wouldn't recognize the original place. Peggy wrote, "He doesn't play golf or hunt or any of that stuff. His hobby is tearing my house apart and putting it back together. The good thing is, it's always better when he gets done. What's a home makeover without some new furniture? Jim makes that too. He's an avid collector of art, a connoisseur of fine wine, and of gourmet dining and cooking. Here's a little dinner he whipped up. When he's not cooking, he's a frequent dinner guest here at the Chef's Table, his favorite restaurant, where his knowledge of things culinary impresses even the professional gourmets.
He is extremely extremely culinary talented. He, in fact, he's traveled all over the world. He's constantly brings us menus. He tells us about his experiences. He himself is a wonderful chef. In fact, as my husband said, if he'd take off that hat he's always wearing all the time and trade in his tie for a chef coat, he probably could be on the Iron Chef show. He is not your typical engineer. He's not. He is like a Renaissance man.
Not all of his moments were quite so palatable. Following a brief stint as a mad scientist, Jim tried his hand at a rock and roll career. But we won't be cruel. All of this might explain why he went around incognito for a while. Or would that be the Phantom of the Optics? The records are pretty fuzzy on this one, but we're pretty sure that he was either making toys or cookies. But no matter where Jim goes, he does so in style, and he sure brought a lot of class to the Marshall Center. A cowboy who traded archaeology for space technology, adept at optics and art, LiDAR and languages, the fabrication of space telescope mirrors, and home renovation, and the list goes on. No wonder more than one person has referred to him as Jim Bilbro, Renaissance Man. On behalf of the entire Marshall Space Flight Center, thank you, Jim, for a truly remarkable career and for the legacy you leave behind. Our very best to you and Peggy, your children, and your grandchildren in all of your future endeavors.